So welcome, and thank you for being here. Thank you for signing up. And a couple of people brought friends. This is great. And so everybody's welcome. So this is every semester we do a reflection for the Foley Center for everybody we invite everyone doing service through the Foley Center to participate in this. And what I like to do is every semester I take a different theme that's related to what we call social justice. Because the term social justice, unless you're studying this as a sociology major or other majors, it can be a pretty vague, overarching term that we throw around. We call our social justice mission, but what we want to do is break it down. And so in the past, we've done topics on human dignity. We've done solidarity. What do we mean by the common good? So today, what we're going to talk about is privilege and social barriers. And that also kind of is intentional to kind of go alongside our campus conversations on engaging equity, which I would invite you all to come. We had our first one on Tuesday. It was a huge success. And we're going to be meeting for the next 3 Tuesdays at 12:15. So that was great. It was, anyway, a really meaningful conversation. I have something I wanted to share with you. So this morning, and some of you have seen my presentation on this. This morning, by mistake, I grabbed my daughter's backpack, and she by mistake took my briefcase to school. But I was actually looking through it, and I wanted to share with you a few things I found in her backpack. So bear with me on this. It's a cool backpack, right? Don't be jealous, Jordan. All right. So what do we have in this backpack? So first thing I found, she's got a rockin' pencil case, right? Isn't that awesome? And what made me think about this is she's ready for class. She can write. She can express herself. And she's got the tools to do it. Catch. You can't keep it. So I also found in here she's got this nifty sweatshirt because it gets cold in the air conditioning. She can be comfortable where she's learning, right? She can be warm if she needs to be. And it says, believe it. Right? She's got some positive messages going on. Again, she's ready to learn. All right, and then I found this cool book. It's one of her favorites. I Am Malala. Anybody heard of Malala? She's a young woman at age 14 and 15 was advocating for women to have education in Pakistan. She was nearly assassinated. She was shot by the Taliban because of that. Well, it only empowered her to again speak around the world on behalf, advocating for women's education. She spoke she's 19 now. She spoke at the United Nations, the General Assembly. My daughter loved this book, right? And here she has a positive model to make an impact on the world. That's power, right? I won't throw this. All right, and then so she's got a snack, right? So, so she won't be hungry, so she can concentrate, right? That's really important, right? Who can do anything when they're hungry? Well, I do bad things when I'm hungry. So, all right. Then I found she got volleyball in her bag. She's a good volleyball player, and she's got something to do after school where she can participate in something positive and help her to be a better person through her friends kind of competing and pushing her to do better. Diamond, heads up. All right, and then I found her yearbook. So, and I was looking through it, and I was like, oh, I know these kids. So, see, they're cute, right? They all look like her. This is probably 98% white school. She feels like she belongs there because everybody looks like her. So you kind of can see where I'm going with this, right? So there is a notion by a woman named Peggy McIntosh, and I'm sorry we don't have we have more chairs.
There's one right there and one right there.
Okay, awesome. I love it. We're standing room only. So a woman named Peggy McIntosh says that we all come into life and in community with an invisible backpack. And some of that is filled with things like this, where you get access and you can have a very good experience. And some people's backpacks don't have those things. So if she didn't have the sweatshirt, she might not have felt secure or safe. If she didn't look like everybody around, she didn't feel like she belonged. She didn't have something, a tool to write with. She couldn't express herself. All those things would impede her education. But if you look at it in terms of community, all those things are barriers if you don't have them. But all those tools are given to, ascribed to some people based on how they look. And that's the privilege, right? And what we call unearned advantage is often given to people who are white in our communities. Men often have an unearned advantage over women. What kind of other advantages are given based on appearance or based on assumption? Think about either your own experience or people in the places where you serve.
Knowledge based on age.
What's that?
Knowledge and wisdom based on age.
Their age? Yeah. They assume young people don't know what they're talking about, maybe? Okay.
Sexuality plays a big role in that.
Yeah.
People identify with.
So if I'm a white guy, I walk into a party, I get one response. If I bring my male partner, that response is going to shift. That is not justice.
It's also like physical appearance. Like if you're more attractive.
Right. If I went through a really dark period in my life and I put on 75 more pounds, that could be used as an assumption to make an opinion about me. That happens.
If you're able-bodied and your level of education.
Right. So if you're in a wheelchair, or if, say you have a hearing disability, and it affects your speech, people may react differently. Biologically, we're driven to be safe. And so what social psychology calls that is there's a within group mentality and there's a between group mentality, meaning there's a double standard. And so we look more favorably on who is in our group. Biologically, we're driven that way. And we have a little bit of a threat response to people who are outside of our group. We have that in our DNA. That's how we have survived as a race, as a species. Not as a race, but as a species, and maybe as race as well. However, the way it is played out is culturally driven, meaning your country, the history of it, the community, the area, defines who is in and who is out and why. So in our country, we have a history of ideology based on racial terrorism, to be honest about it. And so race is a really defining entry or exclusion criteria. That is a very powerful one. We named several others. And so when someone is experiencing that exclusion based on their appearance, they have to work much harder to gain entry. That can be an alienating, that can be a stressful situation. And if someone doesn't have privilege, that can fuel discrimination and fuel a lot of marginalization, oppression. We have lots of words for those. So I'm just thinking of many examples where I've experienced it. I've been on the positive side of privilege. And I was mentioning at a university I used to work at. No matter, it was over and over and over at the upper leadership tables. When the women spoke, the attention went away and people started looking at their cell phones. And then when I spoke, people were looking at me, they were attentive, they were engaged. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with me. And that also corresponded to, there was a much higher rates of promotion for men than women. And it was a cultural thing at that institution. That was wrong. So the key piece is we all are affected by privilege. Some people have that advantage in some situations, but not others. I have quite a combination of male, white, PhD. I'm from outside of New York City, which has geographic area. It has kind of power to it. If I'm in Chicago at a meeting and I'm from New York, they might react to me differently if from my colleague who's from Alabama. Again, they make assumptions. And that is, we're here today to think about that and reflect on that, is it starts with raising awareness and acknowledging that and observing that. And if you benefit from it, is to take measures to correct that, to engage in conversations. Because if you deny it or you don't see it, because it is a fact that this happens in communities. It happens in all cultures. It looks different in different cultures. But if you deny it, it perpetuates. Then you kind of play the game and it reinforces it by participating. But if you stop and acknowledge that and then create opportunities for inclusion, then we can make the world more just. Make sense? So let's maybe, if we can, you have those? I forgot the remote over there. That's another nifty backpack. Not as cool as mine, from Maddie's. Anyway, so here's some quotes from Peggy McIntosh. The invisible knapsack filled with maps, passports. And so maps, what do? They help you navigate a situation, right? Passports, what do? Anyone? That's right. They let you in. That American passport you all might have is a very powerful privilege in this world. If you don't have that, you are vulnerable depending on the country you come from. Let's talk about then visas. What do those do? Now I'm talking about credit cards here. The visas allow you to stay so that you don't have to worry about being excluded. There's security there. And you can think about different groups we work with. Let's think about some of the adults working at coming to ESL. They don't have this sense of security. Our security here is a privilege. Your education is increasing your level of access and privilege in society. But those that have some of the social barriers, it is harder and it is unfair and unjust, and just to name that. So we're going to kind of shift. So looking at some of these other quotes here, folks are denied based on what group they belong to. If you're a woman from the Middle East and you're wearing a hijab, there will be reactions to that. And there are on a regular basis. Next. It doesn't determine one's outcomes necessarily. But there are some people who have that advantage. And I want to offset that with our mission here at Spring Hill College, right, is to talk about what is solidarity beyond difference. And to see difference as a beautiful thing, as a complementary thing, as something that'll help us grow and enrich our lives as family. So that's my little intro today. So we have there's 4 questions I'd like you to think about. Maybe reflect on your own experience of privilege or feeling you're hitting up against a social barrier. Second, what about the people you serve at your community partner? What do you imagine the barriers they experience? And then, what is that community partner doing to offset that marginalization? And then think about your life. What ideas come to mind and how you can make the world a better place by addressing some of these? Any questions about what we're doing today?